also critical is when you're talking about this with your parents is to gather all the information. Have your parents already created an estate planning? Do you know where it is? Do they know where it is? Do the people that they have appointed to act in their stead if they become incapacitated, their agent under a healthcare proxy or a power of attorney, are they still their choices, or have circumstances changed? At Gentreo, we encourage everyone to review their estate planning documents at least once a year to make sure that their choices and their loved ones are still the same and what they want for their estate planning documents. It's important before you start this conversation with your parents that you have an opportunity to ask them to gather whatever relevant paperwork that they've completed or whatever questions that are on their mind, so that when they come to the table, they have their information that gives you both an opportunity to review it and talk about it and come up with a great plan. So discussing money issues with anyone is never easy. It seems to be a topic that creates anxiety or stress. And what we'd like you to do is to feel empowered. So when you have this conversation, you're focused on the goal, which is to make sure that your parents or whoever you're having this conversation with is protected. That's what the goal is. So to get through the awkward initial bit of the conversation, it's as you would begin any difficult conversation. You build up trust and communication, and you explain the reason why you want to engage in this conversation. You're not trying to find out their assets to benefit you. You're trying to find out their assets so that they can be structured to maximize their benefits, to maximize the help that they can get. And that's the reason why you're having the conversation and why you need to make sure that the estate planning documents are in place. So the four critical components of these challenging conversations are legal services, which are related to estate planning, healthcare decisions, right? Who's providing medical care for your parents and what's needed, income and expenses. So oftentimes when people retire, they have a strict monthly income, which they need to budget and live off of. But sometimes needs increase. So what's anticipated there? And finally, it's all the financial documentation. Oftentimes when you seek further aid or assistance or insurance, those applications require detailed financial records. And it's most beneficial if it's all in an easy to locate place and all available. So let's break it down. For legal services, this has to do with estate planning. At Gentreo, we offer you an opportunity to create these estate planning documents online. And we'll go into further detail in the next slide about what these specific documents are. But in general, this is an important part of your conversation with your parents or your loved ones, whoever you're having this conversation with, because these documents enable the person to choose who would make decisions for them if they became incapacitated. It's not just a question of what happens when I die, which of course that is addressed with the will. The other questions are what happens as we age and we become disabled, unable to make decisions due to maybe a dementing process or some other cognitive decline. As we're all experiencing right now with COVID, we know there are implications that would affect people's ability to communicate. All of these health considerations mean that everyone should have a healthcare proxy. That's appointing someone to make it a healthcare decision for you. In the same way, you need someone, if you're unable to make decisions, to make financial decisions for you. This empowers someone to pay your bills, manage your accounts. That's what a power of attorney would do. A will, as we've discussed, that is an opportunity to indicate who you want to receive your benefits. It can be anyone you choose. If you don't create a will, then all your assets go as is dictated by the laws of your state. So some people think, oh, well, I'm not going to do will and it'll just be whatever. It won't be whatever. It'll be whatever the law has established in your state. Further, a will is an opportunity for you to appoint someone to manage your estate, someone you trust. Again, when you choose not to make a decision about this, decisions and choices are taken away from you and given to someone else. And that's a very important part of your conversation with your loved one. Most people care very deeply about these issues. They want to be in charge and in control. And that's why you're offering this conversation as an opportunity to honor their wishes, put them in writing so that they will be respected. Healthcare. Healthcare, you should really know who is the primary care physician of your loved one. Are there any specialists? What is the medication that your loved one's taking? What is the insurance? What's the preferred hospital? These are all important considerations. And if you don't know, or your parents are used to making all these decisions on their own, maybe mom and dad are a good team and they're working together. But the problem is sometimes is one of them suffers a health decline, the other's overwhelmed with the stress of the taking care of the person that suffered the health decline, and there's no backup. Essentially, with this conversation is you're offering an opportunity to create a safe plan. What are we going to do in the case of an emergency? At Gentreo, we offer, as part of your yearly subscription service, a Gentreo Family Vault. This enables you to not only store your critical estate planning documents, but it also allows you to complete all this information regarding the names of the doctor, the contact information, your health insurance, your medication list, all these things, so that they're all safely stored in your digital vault and then can easily be shared with select people that you choose. So as you begin this conversation with your loved ones or your aging parents, it's also an opportunity to maybe, instead of taking written notes, just join Gentreo, get right online, and complete the information then and there. So it's all done and readily available and accessible when an emergency hits. As I had mentioned briefly on the overview, income and expenses. Most elders have a Social Security income.
Hey, Mary Kate, it's Kimberly. We're going to restart this. The recording function didn't happen and no one's been live, so we're going to redo it. Stop you. Sorry. For some reason, it didn't start recording.
Okay.
Minutes in, so
all right.
Didn't want to scare the bejesus out of you, but here we are.
Okay. All right. Well, so are you going to cue me or just like say start at 1:12 or?
Jake is.
I send you a private message. Are you going to be able to see it? Like
on my phone? I have my phone right in front of me.
Okay, here, yeah. So I'll send you a text on your phone when you can start. All right.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about the fire drill, but we figure we're going to have you redo it for the on demand anyways. So.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just.
So I will let Jake.
I don't have a script. I'm just winging it anyway. So.
Yeah. No, it sounded good. Okay, so I will let Jake cue you, and I am going to mute myself again.
Yep. So I'll send you a text, and as soon as it actually starts recording, and then you can just go ahead.
So I've got a screen up now. I should X out of it saying new private chat.
Yeah, you can exit out of that. I'll send you a text to your phone. That was my bad.
Okay. No. All right.
All right.
Okay.
I'll send you a text in just a moment.
Okay. No problem.
All right. Bye.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Gentreo's webinar on aging and estate planning. I'm attorney Mary Kate D'Souza, one of the founders of Gentreo, and we're happy to have you here to learn about this very important topic. Estate planning. What is it, and what do you need to do to talk to your loved ones about this issue? A very critical first step is to find out what, if anything, your parents have done already. Or if you're not talking to your parents, maybe you're talking to an elderly aunt or uncle or grandparent even. Most people get overwhelmed when they hear the term estate planning and feel for some reason it doesn't apply to them. And that's not true. Estate planning is merely a legal term of art to describe all those documents that you create to protect your choices and your loved ones. Every capable American, adult American, should have a healthcare proxy, also known as a power of attorney for healthcare, a power of attorney for finances, and a will. Those are three essential documents that every capable adult American should have. Additionally, depending upon circumstances, you may also need a power of attorney. It's a good idea to have this in your wheelhouse. Finally, you may want to consider having a trust-based estate plan. You could have a will-based estate plan or a trust-based estate plan. And depending on goals, you may want to have a trust. But at a minimum, everyone should at least have a will, a power of attorney, and a healthcare proxy. What's also important when you begin this conversation is to gather all the information, is to find out everything that is needed to create these documents. Oftentimes, when people create an estate plan, they do it and think they're done with it. And what they do, they put it in a filing cabinet or maybe in a shoebox under the bed. You hear stories of people putting it in a duffel bag and hiding in a closet. All of these are not really good solutions because when a crisis hits, you need to be able to access these materials in order to use them. There'd be no point in creating it if you can't have access to it. Further, oftentimes things might change. People that wanted to benefit earlier, maybe they died or you have fallen out. Circumstances change, you may not choose to benefit them anymore. Or maybe you designated someone to act as your healthcare proxy, but they moved out of state and far away, and you need to choose someone else. These are all considerations about why you need to alter your estate plan documents. So even though your parents might have completed estate planning documents, might not be current and really what they need to reflect their current needs. So it's important to review, see what you have, but then also assess any of these need to be changed, have circumstances changed, in which now we need to do something else. So discussing money issues with your aging parents. This is not an easy conversation. Most people having a conversation about money creates stress or anxiety. But what creates even more stress and anxiety is not having the conversation. It's very important for all of these factors to be laid out and discussed so that you come up with a plan. And maybe help begin this conversation that you frame it in that way. You're trying to help your parents or whatever level that you're engaging in this conversation, develop trust so that there's a plan in place that if something happens, they are protected, their wishes are effectuated. Most people care very strongly about it. So if you get to this conversation with it will help move the conversation along. It makes it so that they understand you're not looking to find out about the assets that fit you. You're looking about the assets and their other information to benefit them, to create a plan which they feel protected and they can be secure and less easy. So if you look at it, there are four parts of the conversation that intersect and are all important. One has to do with legal services, which is the estate planning piece. The other part, the health care. What are your current healthcare needs? What is anticipated? And all the information that goes along with that. The third piece of the conversation has to do with stream of income and and very detailed applications that need to be completed. If all this information can be gathered together and created and stored in one location, it makes it that much easier to get, first of all, an overall understanding of what the financial picture is. Also enables forms and other material to be easily shared with people that need to have that information. Now, at Gentreo, one of the important features that we offer as part of our annual subscription is the Gentreo Digital Vault. So one thing you may want to consider when you begin this conversation, instead of having your pen and paper and doing it that way, maybe you and your loved ones might want to just get online and work on it together. Gentreo gives you the opportunity to create your own estate planning documents, which we'll talk about in more detail. But it also offers you an opportunity to scan and upload all relevant information. And there are certain cards in the digital vault that have a question and answer, which will enable you to fill it out so all your information is available. So that's information for you, but you could choose to give that information to your son or daughter who's having the conversation with you. You could make them part of your Gentreo team, so that the information is all stored in one place and readily accessible. We've had stories at Gentreo of people who have, created an estate plan and then have stored it in a filing cabinet or a safe deposit box. We've even heard a story of someone who put it in a duffel bag in the closet. None of these are really options, because when a crisis hits, it's not accessible. It's all tucked away, hidden somewhere. And in the case of a safe deposit box, if you have a safe deposit box, you're still going to need a court order to get into the safe deposit box to get the power of attorney. So it defeats the whole purpose of why you have created these documents. So let's talk about these four critical pieces of conversation in depth. Piece is the legal services. This is essentially your estate planning documents. As I said, every capable American adult should have, at a minimum, a power of attorney, a healthcare proxy, and a will. You may also need to do a power of attorney or trust. These documents enable who you would want to take care of you and make decisions for you in the eventuality if you were not able to do. If you create an estate plan, what happens is the laws of the state kick in, and that becomes your estate. So all control and showing up that care about it, view what you have to make sure that what you have created is current and reflects what you want. Healthcare. This is an important conversation because oftentimes people are used to doing everything on their own, and that's natural. However, as we age, it's really important that you have a backup, that you have someone there who knows and understands what your medical diagnosis, prognosis, what your referrals are, who your primary care physician is, what your medication is, what your insurance. All this information is very important, because if you have someone who make decisions for you, be on a steep learning curve. No one wants. So how often do you see the doctor? What doctors do you see? What are your medications? Are there any allergies? All these things. Again, at Gentreo, we seek to make this easier for you. We have an emergency card that you can complete for free, and includes most of these questions. Moreover, in our digital vault, you need to put all that information in, so it's always readily need is paid for by the insurance. And if it's not, what you need to do to make sure that you get that care. Income and expenses. Most elderly people in America receive Social Security income. However, they don't rely on that alone. There's often another source of income or multiple sources of income, particularly if it's still a couple relationship. So it's important to understand what the monthly stream of income is and what the monthly deficits are. What are the bills? How much does the medication out of pocket cost? What's the health copay? Often for elderly people, the health costs are a big part of the budget, along with housing costs and food costs. So it's very important to figure out where the baseline is now, but all what we know, where are our expenses going? Are we going to have to dip into savings? Are we going to have to make an application for insurance through the state? These are all considerations, but you can't even get to those further questions until you know what's happening at present. Finally, it's the financial records piece. This piece is very important because if you do need further insurance, subsidized insurance from the state, there's a very detailed application that goes along with it. Oftentimes, it requires 5 years of financial records. If you're in a habit of maintaining all your financial records and storing them and keeping them in one place, like the Gentreo digital vault, it will make it that much easier to create and complete that application. Additionally, by having a broad overview, by gathering all the financial information and putting it in one place, it gives an opportunity to have an open conversation about, well, knowing we have this size nest egg, how do we want to spend this to maximize our quality of life, where we live, etc. And by having that conversation, it makes it much easier. I mean, I think most people, like my parents, their goal was to remain in their home for as long as possible. And we were able to do that, but we were in a very fortunate position. Not everyone, because of either finances or extreme care needs, could achieve that goal. So it's very important to have that conversation about what your goals are and what you have and how that can align. And again, entering into this conversation in the spirit of, we want to make sure your choices, your desires are honored and effectuated, is the best way to have it, because that way your parents know that you're really caring of them and what they want. Okay, so let's get into the very detailed subtopic of exactly what the purpose of each of these estate planning documents are. Beginning with the healthcare proxy. Depending upon where you live, this could also be called a power of attorney for healthcare, a medical power of attorney, a healthcare surrogate. These are all ways to describe a form in which you are able to appoint someone, your first choice, make healthcare decisions for you in the eventuality that you're incapacitated or could not communicate what your health decisions are. This healthcare proxy only goes into effect upon your incapacity. It is not, if someone with a healthcare proxy can't make a healthcare decision for you if you are capable. But by having this document, you are empowering someone you trust, you love, who knows you, to make decisions for you in that situation. Most of us would not want a stranger making those decisions. That's why it's critical we complete this form. A Gentreo healthcare proxy also offers you an opportunity to create an alternate choice and a second alternate choice. Basically, a first, second, and third choice to make these decisions for you. Additionally, a Gentreo healthcare proxy gives you an opportunity to express what your specific healthcare wishes are, especially for end of life. Do you want life-sustaining treatment? Do you want artificial hydration and nutrition? Do you want something else specifically? You have an opportunity to say specifically what you want and specifically what you don't want. And again, that gives you an opportunity to have what you want happen when you become incapacitated. The next important essential estate planning document is the financial power of attorney. Similar to a healthcare, official power of attorney allows you to appoint someone called an agent or an attorney in fact to make financial decisions for you. At Gentreo, you're able to set a term limit on this or make it durable, meaning it would last until you die. Additionally, you can choose what select powers you want to give to your agent. Most people give very broad powers because they don't want to tie the hands of the person that they've chosen to make financial decisions for them. But that may not be appropriate for every circumstance. Again, your choices, it's up to you to decide what you want. The important thing is that you do choose someone to make these decisions. The consequence of not choosing or not completing a power of attorney, rather, is that if you become incapacitated, no one has authority to pay your bills, manage your money, or do anything else. So with that, people have to go to court to get what's known as a conservator appointed for you to therefore make financial decisions. And sometimes, unfortunately, if you don't choose someone, fight about it. Someone may want me to do it, and someone might want there becomes a fight. And normally what happens in the circumstances, in family members, the court appoints a stranger, a neutral third person for you. So you don't do anyone any favors by not completing these documents. Others is now, why is that important? Last will and testament, I think most of us know, only kicks in after you die. If you really don't care who gets all your hard-earned money, then you don't have to worry about it. You can just let it be. But most people who've worked hard all their life care. They want to be able to choose who they want to receive certain things. And you know, sometimes it's not only about the money or those assets, but it's about sentimental things in the family. You know, maybe a great aunt's pearls or someone's china or something like this that has a value. If you don't put it down in writing, then it just gets distributed laws of your state, which usually means it gets sold and the money split equally among sometimes what happens is you're particularly close to one sibling and maybe you haven't spoken to the other sibling in 20 years. Do you really want them to benefit the same? That's why it's you saying in a will who you want to get your possessions. You also have an opportunity to say who you help. Finally, if you're the parent of a minor child, and I would say most importantly, this is why you want to have a will, it gives you an opportunity to nominate someone to take care of your children in the eventuality that you died before they did. You want to make sure that the person you love and trust, that the court knows who you love and trust to be parents of your children in your absence. And if you don't create a will, the court has nothing to guide them on who should be making that decision. And again, if there's a conflict, it makes it very difficult and causes more stress and anxiety, not only on your children, but on all your loved ones. A pet power of attorney. This is a document similar to a healthcare proxy and power of attorney in which you nominate someone to make decisions for the care of your pet. You could have a short term, meaning if you're going on vacation or you're going to be working out of state for a few months, you're appointing someone to take care of your animal for that short period of time. But you could also make it durable, long lasting, so that this is for if something happens and you become incapacitated and can't take care of your pet anymore, you're appointing someone to make those decisions for you. In addition to nominating someone to act as your pet agent, you also have an opportunity within the pet power of attorney to say how much money you want to spend on the care of your pet. Now, why is that a critical piece? It's critical because most pet sitters don't know what your income is, what your assets are, what you can afford. If on their watch, heaven forbid, your dog gets hit by a car and the surgery is $10,000 and you don't have pet insurance, what's going to happen if they agree to that $10,000 surgery and you don't have that money? You'll be the one that's on the hook for payment. So it's important that sort of the financial parameters of what you can afford be spelled out. And of course, this is all very fact sensitive, right? What you want to spend on a new dog who's young and a puppy as opposed to an older dog may be different. But these are all considerations that you have a choice and you have an opportunity to control by completing a pet power of attorney. Another document that's important is a living trust. Now, I mentioned that you can have either a will-based estate plan or a trust-based estate plan. For most Americans, a will-based estate plan is sufficient. However, some Americans may prefer, depending upon their jurisdiction, to do a trust-based estate plan. Let's talk about what the differences are. With a will, you own everything up until the time that you die. And when you die, the court, based on your will, appoints someone to be your personal representative to distribute all your assets. A living trust is created during your lifetime. This is a document in which you create sort of the rules, the roadmap of how you want your assets to be distributed. Assets have to be transferred into the trust. So there's a cost with that. So if you own a home and you want to make it in which you have to transfer property out of your name into the name of the trust. What happens, though, is that upon your death, depending upon the term of the death, but oftentimes not 100%. And why is that? The probate process, which is the legal term to describe the production of the will and going to court and getting it allowed. Not all assets are transferred into the trust during a person's lifetime. There's usually outliers. So that not only do you have to have a trust, you have to have what's called a pour-over will. This will puts everything that isn't already into the trust into the trust. Is to avoid probate. There usually still is a probate to it. Not with, because there's privacy issues involved. When you probate a will, like any other court experience, it becomes part of the public record. For the most part, trusts are private. They're not published. They don't become part of the court record. The only time the court becomes involved is if there's any litigation or a lawsuit over the terms of the trust. Another factor may be money. Now, if you have a substantial amount of money and you don't mind paying the costs of the transfer of assets into the trust now, you may choose to create a trust. Others would prefer not to pay that fee and just let it come out of their estate when they die, and the funds could be or the assets could be transferred then. So there are pros and cons to a will-based estate plan or a trust-based estate plan. And depending upon your choices and your desires, you would make a decision as to what type of plan that you'd want. Storing and sharing information. We touched upon this briefly when we talked about the importance of having this conversation with our aging parents or other loved ones. It's so critical that all relevant information be available. When a crisis hits, you don't want to be put in a position where your loved one's in the hospital, but you're at their house digging through bags of junk trying to find the healthcare proxy or other documents. Some of the saddest cases I've had in court with a loved one in exactly that circumstance. One case, an elderly gentleman whose wife was dying in hospital and having multi-system failure, and he knew her desire was to have a DNR, which is a do not resuscitate, meaning she wanted to die without any interventions should that time arise. However, he could not find the do not resuscitate form that she completed. It was not part of her health record at this hospital. So as a car, when she was near the end of her life, he was with authority to make the most intimate decision. So how do we avoid that? We documents, and by storing them in a manner in which they're readily available and accessible. That's the Gentreo family vault. This vault such as things can be available. And once they're in the vault, you can share it with. Most of us have someone that we would trust with health decisions, maybe someone else that we trust with financial decisions. So you could give that information to select people. Not everyone has to have all the information, but it's important that it's gathered and it's shared with people that you choose. So we touched upon this briefly. If you have no estate planning, first of all, some people think, oh, I don't have a lot of money, I don't need an estate plan. Hopefully you understand now that you do, because all of us run the risk of becoming incapacitated. If we lack the ability to make decisions, the court's going to appoint someone to make decisions for us. Why not make it easier? Why not nominate someone to make decisions for you? If you don't have a will, as I said, it'll be the laws of intestacy in your state that govern who gets what. Most people care about that. It's very challenging now with circumstances due to COVID to get access to the courts. All of these things could work against you if you don't have an estate plan. So it's very critical that while you're engaging in this conversation with your parents about their global desires for as they age, it's very critical that this first step be achieved, and that's creating an estate plan. Well, thank you again for joining us on this webinar to talk about aging and estate planning. I'll take some questions, if there are any now. And if there aren't any, we welcome you, where there's all sorts of information about the topics we've discussed here and other topics. Thank you.